going to be a little similar, connected to what we've learned until now, but obviously be more things as well. Okay, we are now on the second Mishnah on Hey Amid Beis. So the Torah says, there's another pasuk also, so some have that pasuk in the Mishnah. The Torah says that by the testimony of two witnesses or three witnesses, you kill the dead man. Now, most probably you're calling the dead man is because he's going to be killed, because the court decided that he should be killed. That's why you call him Yumat Hamet. But there's another idea that Rishaim, wicked people, when they're alive, they're already called dead. We have an idea that Tzaddikim, righteous people, when they pass away, they're still called alive. They live on. Their mitzvot, their Torah, lives on. But the Rishaim, even when they're alive, they're dead. They're called dead. Here, Yumat Hamet, he's already called dead in a certain sense. But the pasuk says, if you have two or three witnesses, based on the testimony of two or three witnesses, we kill somebody. So the Gemara says, now there's an obvious question. Im miskayemet ha'edut b'shnayim, lama parot ha'kasuv b'shlosha. If you could fulfill the testimony with two witnesses, the Torah says two witnesses is enough. So does the Torah need to tell me you could also use three witnesses? If you tell me if you tell me that two witnesses have a power to go ahead and kill somebody, and so if two does the trick, certainly three does the trick. So why does the Torah write two or three? Just tell me two witnesses does the trick, and I'll know automatically that three witnesses do the trick. Is the Gemara's question clear? What's the answer?
One of them was found Zomimim, so there's no case anymore. So now by having three people, if one of the three finds to be Zomim, but you still have two left, so the case is still valid.
Okay, so the
Morning,
Yosef Tzaddik. The Gemara is going to say something similar, but take it the other way. The Gemara is going to say that just like if you have one witness, two witnesses, if one witness becomes a zomein, the other witness doesn't have any power. He knocks out the other witness. So when you have three witnesses, if one becomes a zomein, it also knocks out the other people. Well, that's going to be one approach. Very good. You're thinking that we're comparing it in some way. Well, let's see. The Gemara is going to have different answers to the question. So, Dr. David, whenever you're ready, we'll take it. Okay. So the Gemara says, Elo lahakish shlosha lishnayim. We're comparing 3 to 2. Some have the Girsah, we're comparing 2 to 3. Ma shlosha mazimim es hashnayim. 3 witnesses are mazimim es hashnayim. 3 witnesses will make 2 people zomamim, right? If you tell me api shlosha edim yokum dava, you tell me if there are 3 witnesses work, right? The Torah tells us 3 witnesses work. So where does 3 witnesses work? If 3 witnesses come, the second pair of witnesses come, and they say about the first pair of witnesses, you guys were with us. We believe the second pair of witnesses, correct? We believe the 3 witnesses that come. So the Torah, by connecting 2 to 3, by writing in the same pasuk 2 or 3, is comparing the 2 to the 3. And what way? Just like 3 people could invalidate 2, af shnayim Yuzumu Esagimo. Two witnesses have the power to make Zomeim three witnesses. That if you have three witnesses that come to court and say Reuven killed Shimon on a certain day, and then comes two witnesses subsequently, and say two guys walk into court and say about these three guys, you three guys were with us. How do we know if the Torah would just write, if the Torah would just write that we listen to two witnesses, we would have said, maybe when it's 2 against 2, they win. But when we need to know, how do you know when it's 2 against 3 that they're going to win? When the second pair is going against 3, how do we know they win? By the fact that the Torah compares it to 3, but the fact that the Torah compares the 2 to the 3 tells us they have the power to defeat 3 witnesses as well. That's why the Torah connects the 2 to the 3 to tell us that 2 witnesses that come as a second pair of witnesses could make Zomeim 3 witnesses. So the Gemara wants to know, okay, so 2 can make Zomeim 3. What about 2 making more than 3? 2 going against 100? Let's say there's 100 witnesses that come to court and say Reuven killed Shimon. And then 2 guys say, all these 100 guys were with us at the party. We had a party. And let's say all 100 witnesses come into court at one time. Right? We had the Gemara earlier that we had a Makkos. Would 2 witnesses be able to invalidate, because they come in and they say, you guys are with us. Then 2 other guys come to court and say, Reuven killed Shimon. They come and they say that these witnesses come back and say, you guys are also with us, right? Remember we discussed that? We had a question. Rabbi Yehuda says you can't trust them regarding because if they say everybody was with us, maybe, but that's when they all right. So maybe you could say that maybe over there, when every time witnesses come to court, these guys come forward and say you guys are with us. Maybe it sounds a little fishy. But if 100 people come to court at one time and they say we saw this happen, and these guys come one time and they say you all with us, maybe that could be a chiluk. Maybe that could be a difference. And we would say they're going to be believed. The 2 witnesses, the second group of witnesses that come to court, will be believed against the 100 witnesses that say Reuven killed Shimon. How do we know that? So the Gemara says because the Hekish only tells us that 2 to 3, that 2 can knock out 3. How do we know that 2 can knock out more than 3? So the Gemara says, Talmud Loma Edim. The pasuk says Edim. Edim means the whole group. As many as the group is, these witnesses have the power to go ahead and knock them all out. The Rabbeinu Hananel explains that he understands the Gemara the following. It says, Api Shnayim Ushlosha Edim. The Torah could have said, Api Shnayim Ushlosha Edim Yakum Davar, right? It says, Api Shnayim Edim Ushlosha Edim Yakum Davar, right? The pasuk, there's an extra Edim in the pasuk. Right, so he's going to say exactly both ways. I'll tell you how he says. It says al pi shnayim edim o shlosha edim yumat hameh. So now, what's extra? The word edim, Doctor, with us in the Mishnah, the word edim is extra. If you say by the mouth of 2 witnesses or 3 witnesses, you could have just said by the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses. There's an extra word, edim is written twice. Is that clear, Mr. Safdie? So what the fact that the Torah is writing the word edim twice is telling us that shnayim, api shnayim, whether it's 2 or edim, or more than 2, as many as they are, they have the same power. That means 2 witnesses, 100 witnesses are the same. Meaning to say, let's say you have 100 witnesses say something. They say Reuven borrowed $100 from Shimon. And then 2 witnesses come to court and say, we were there, he didn't borrow the money from Shimon. We don't say that it's 100 against 2, and the 100 win the case. We say Trey is Kameya. We say 2 witnesses like 100 witnesses. How do we know that concept? And therefore, how do we know that concept? The 2 is like 100. Because the pasuk refers to, writes the extra edim to tell us 2 edim. That 2 is considered a testimony in edus for like as many witnesses that 2 is equal to edim, as many witnesses that it's like 100 witnesses that come. So now that the Torah says 2 is like 100 witnesses that come, so therefore the Rebbeinu Chananel says, if the same way that 2 equals 100 regarding when witnesses come to court, so regarding making zomimim, regarding witnesses, if witnesses come to court, first pair of witnesses are 100 witnesses, and the second pair is 2. Morning, Morris. The second pair of witnesses is 2 people. But the fact that we already established that 2 is like 100, the 2 witnesses have the power like 100, so the second pair of witnesses have the power to knock out 100 witnesses. Is that clear? The Gemara learns it out from the pasuk. Look at the language of the Mishnah. It says, look at the Mishnah. Want to say something, Aaron? Maris, we're in the Mishnah. Third line in the Mishnah. 3 people make zomimim, 2 afashnayim yuzumu esakim. 2 could also make, could frame 3, right? We compare 2 to 3. The Torah tells us, by telling us that alpi shnayim edim or shlosha edim yakum davar, that the 2 witnesses have the power like 3, and it can knock out 3. But the Gemara wants to know, Ela minayin afilu meya. Meya is the 100. How do we know? You see in the Mishnah, Dr. Navid? Uminayin afilu meya. How do we know that 2 witnesses could knock out 100 witnesses? All 100 you with us. Right. 2 is good. So right, 2 are like a power of 100, exactly. If 2 is like a power of 100, so obviously it can knock out 100 witnesses. Say it again.
I understand that if 2, 3, 4, 5, obviously then the power of 100 people, right?
Right.
So why did we start as
Because the first lesson we can learn from the pasuk, we first needed to learn the smaller chidush. The first thing we needed to know, we said that the pasuk first taught us that 2, meaning if the pasuk would have just said edim, maybe we would have said 2 has a power of 3. But the fact that the Torah tells us 2 teachings. The Torah tells us, number 1, 2 is like 3, by comparing 2 to 3. And then the Torah tells us another thing, edim. 2 is like as many. 2 is like as many witnesses is equal to Shaim edim. It's 2 witnesses are equal to as many. It's as if many witnesses came. So the second word of edim teaches us that they have a power of 100. If you would only have 1 teaching, Yaron, we would have learned, we would have understood the word, even if it only said the word edim. If the Torah said api shnayim edim, we would have said maybe 2 has a power of 3, but we would not have known it has a power of 100. But now that we have 2 points, 2 teachings in the Mishnah. Number 1, it compares 2 to 3. It can knock out 3. And then now it tells us another point about the power of the 2, that it's equal to 100. If it's equal to 100, so it can knock out 100 too. if they're the second pair of witnesses that come. So that's what the Mishnah says.
But not the third pair. This is strictly.
So they took the second pair knocking out the first pair. The second pair coming and saying that the first pair.
No, the second pair having the same power as 180 only applies to the second pair. We always believe the second pair.
We always leave the second pair, exactly.
So only the second pair that has special power.
Right, only the second pair has special power, and only when the second pair is saying that you guys are with us. If the second pair is just contradicting the first pair of witnesses, we will not go ahead and just believe the second pair of witnesses because they contradict the second. In the details of the case. Right. This is the location that this is only about the second pair of witnesses say, you guys were not there. They're talking about the credibility, not the details of the case. They're talking about the credibility of the witnesses. They say you guys were not there. Just like the second pair of witnesses will be believed to say that the first pair of witnesses are liars because we know that they lied somewhere else, or the second pair of witnesses will be able to say that the first pair of witnesses are Rishaim, are wicked. They're also believed to say that they were with us.
What's the radiation
Talmud Loma. Talmud Loma, therefore the Pasuk says, the Pasuk teaches us. Yes. So they will invalidate if Mr. Safdie's case is 3 people say Reuven killed Shimon, and 2 witnesses come afterwards and say 2 of you 3 were with us, so that they will invalidate the testimony of the first people because they said that 2 of the 3 were with us, but we will not kill the first witnesses because they all have to become Zomim, the Mishnah is going to say, in order to kill the first pair of witnesses. The only time that even though they got 2 of them to be Zomim, we're going to see in the Mishnah coming up right now that in order to kill because the Pasuk says there's different reasons for this. We're going to see different. How do we know this? We're going to see the source for this. But the bottom line is the only way we're going to kill the Zomim is only if all of them become Zomim. If 2 of the 3 become Zomim, no problem. We're going to see because we're going to learn it now. Okay, we need all of them to become Zomim. Look at, and you know what? That's what one of the people are going to say from this pasuk. We're going to see right now. Let's see, coming up. Rav Shimon, right here. Rav Shimon Omer. Rav Shimon says, "Ma shnayim einen heragim ashu shnehem zomim." Rav Shimon says, 2 witnesses are not killed unless they both become zomim. And how do we know that? So Rashi says before, if you look at and again, and that was the halacha with the Rabbi Yehuda ben Tabai story. What was the story of Yehuda ben Tabai that we had yesterday? He killed 1 witness who was a framer. His mistake was, what did he say? His mistake was he needed to have both of them to be framers to kill anybody. You can't kill anyone unless both are framers. Correct? What was the problem with Yehuda ben Tabai? He killed 1, only 1 was found as a framer, and he killed both. And he killed that 1. And you have to get the group. Now the mission is extending it, Mr. Safdie. Then not only you have to get both of them to be framers, if there's more than 2 witnesses, got to make all of them to be framers in order for you to kill anybody.
This is it. It says 2 or 3.
But that's going to be the next mission's question. Dr. Navid, that's the mission's question. Maybe we can learn out all 3 have to be framers in order to kill them. How do you know you need all 100? Let's say if there's 100 witnesses and you found 2 of them to be framers. If there's 1 group, how do you know that you need all 100 to become framers in order to kill the framers? Meaning to say that only if the 100 come as a group, as 1 group. How do we know we need? And that, the Gemara is going to bring that right now. The Mishnah says, Rabbi Shimon Omer, "Ma shnayim ein erogin asher shteim zomim." Just as 2 people and two witnesses aren't killed unless they both become framers. And Rashi says, because the pasuk said, eight sheker. The pasuk refers to the witnesses, the group, as one, that the group testify falsely. So that teaches us that you needed two witnesses to become framers in order for you to go ahead and kill two witnesses. Because the pasuk says, what's the case of the Torah? The case of the Torah is two witnesses come and say, Reuben did something to Shimon. And the second pair of witnesses say about the first guys, plural, but the first guys, you guys had no way business of testifying because you were somewhere else. That's the case of the Torah. Both of them, because the pasuk says, Hine eight sheker ha'ed. The pasuk says ha'ed sheker. When the Torah says the word ha'ed, it's a minimum of two people. It means two people, unless the Torah tells us one. So therefore, the case of the Torah is both of them were false, were framers, were found to be framers. So just saying now by comparing 2 to 3 is teaching us that the same way that both had to be framers, by telling us 3 is telling us that when you have 3 witnesses, they also all have to be framers. So really, Reb Shimon is comparing the 3 to the 2. When the Torah says the extra word, it says al pi shnayim u shlosha edim. The question we had was, if you tell me 2 witnesses could do the deal, so what do you got to tell me 3? It's obvious. The answer is, it's telling us a special law about the 3, that the 3 are similar to the what? To the 2. You got to make all 3 framers in order to kill any one of the 3. If you make 2 of the 3 framers, that's not enough. And if you make one framer and you still have a majority of 2, we will again. You need to make all 3 framers. And if you make one a framer, we're going to also see that we're not going to listen to the testimony of the other 2. That we're also going to see Yaron's case. If we made morning Ariel, if we made one of the 3 framers, the guy who was found as a framer is framed. It's called the label. One out of 3 was found to be a framer. Even though he's not going to be killed, he's labeled. I mean, many will say that we will label him as a false witness, as a zomer. Put that Ariel back again. Baruch Hashem.
So
yes.
You must understand the same case for the children, right?
And if 3 witnesses,
we only need 12, right?
We need 2 witnesses, but in order to kill any of the framers, you have to invalidate the whole group of witnesses. That group that the guy came from. So they come as a unit. If 3 people come to court and they say Reuven killed Shimon, if you found 2 of them to be framers, morning, Mr. Rapport, good to see you. If you found 2 of them to be framers, we will. If you have 3 witnesses that came together as a group, like Dr. Navid said, and 2 of them were found to be framers, you would say you should kill them, right? If they try to kill somebody, and the court gave a verdict to kill the suspect, and then the witnesses walked in and say, "You guys are with us," and they testified about 2 out of the 3, you would have said, "Kill those 2." But we say no. Why? Because since they came with 3 people as a group, the only way you're going to kill anybody is if a whole group was found to be framers. All or nothing, so to speak. You know, if you don't have all of them to be, you can invalidate the 2 witnesses, and we're not going to listen to what they said. But if they all were not found to be framers, we do not kill anybody. And that's learned. Good morning. And that's learned from the fact that the Torah compared 3 witnesses to 2 witnesses. Because the Gemara had an obvious question. The Torah tells you, you listen to the mouth. See, this is a mouth. It's not a written testimony. It's an oral testimony. The mouth, that says, we don't, witnesses don't just to write in a testimony. They have to talk testimony. The Torah says you listen to 2 or 3. An item is established by the testimony of 2 witnesses or the testimony of 3 witnesses. So the obvious question is, if 2 witnesses does the trick, if 2 witnesses are strong enough the Torah does not believe 1 witness on capital punishment, on cases of, they want to say Reuven killed somebody, we don't punish anybody based on the testimony of 1 witness. We need a minimum of 2 witnesses, not like the secular courts here in the United States. We need a minimum of 2, we need 2 witnesses in order to punish anybody. Court will not punish. The power of 1 witness is 1 witness has the ability to obligate an oath. If, let's say, to obligate a shua, it means, let's say if 1 witness says that Reuven borrowed, I saw Reuven borrow $100 from Shimon, and Reuven denies it. Reuven says, I never borrowed that $100. You hear the case, Ariel? 2 guys come to court, Mr. Safdie and their own say that Reuven borrowed $100 from Shimon, and so he's 2 people. Reuven denies it. 2 witnesses win. If 2 witnesses say that Reuven borrowed $100, they win. What? A star? Yeah, but there's no document. They didn't make any document. They didn't make any document. There was no document. They should have had a document, but they didn't know document. But they're 2 witnesses, the 2 witnesses win. So you don't always need to have, if you have witnesses, you might not need to have a document. You had 2 witnesses on the deal. You don't need the document if you have 2 witnesses. If you have no witnesses, you shouldn't make a loan without any witnesses or any document. It should always be a paper trail or a people's trail. But if you went ahead and you didn't have 2 witnesses come to court. 2 witnesses come, and then we believe 2 witnesses. What about if only 1 witness came to say Reuven borrowed the money from Shimon? Reuven denies it. Reuven has to swear that he did not borrow the money, and Reuven will be believed. He's not believed against 2 witnesses. He can swear from today to tomorrow.
Type of scenario, even like borrowing money, let's say 2 witnesses come and say, yes, you were here when you agreed to borrow $100, and they were found to the witness now also have pay.
So again, that's a very good question. If it was 2 witnesses and that claimed that Reuven borrowed the $100 from Shimon, and they went to court and they testified Reuven borrowed $100 from Shimon, and then subsequently then the court decided guilty, so that Reuven owes $200 to Shimon based on the testimony, and then 2 witnesses come to court and say, you guys are with us, they have to pay. They have to pay Reuven the money that they wanted to obligate. Is that clear? They have to pay, yes. So now the Mishnah states, the comparison of 2 to 3 is that just like 2, in order for 2 witnesses to be killed, they both have to become Zomim. Morning, Boker Tov. In order for 3 witnesses to be killed, they also all have to become Zomim in order to kill anybody. Unless they all 3 become framers. 2 of the 3 become framers, we're not going to kill anyone unless all 3 become framers. Mr. Safdie, is that clear? Then the Mishnah asks your question, Dr. Nadir. How do we know that even 100 witnesses? How do we know that if there were 100 witnesses on a deal and they said that Reuven killed Shimon, and then you want to go ahead and you made 89 of them Zomimim, but you didn't make 100 of them Zomimim? How do you know you got to make all of them, even 100 witnesses Zomimim, in order for you to kill any one of them, of that group? All of them have to be considered, all of them have to be made framers. So the Gemara says, Tamiloma Edim. Edim teaches us they're all one group. And the fact that Eidim teaches us, we look at it as a collective group. It's like one group. So therefore, you have to go ahead and knock out the whole group, make the whole group as framers in order for you to, we look at this 100 are like 2. 100 witnesses are like 2. The power of 2 is like 100. 100 is not more than 2. What'd you say? If 2 witnesses come and they say about 100 witnesses, we don't say it's 100 to 2. You know, in the court, we have majority by a court. But you know, if you have a case in the court, the majority majority wins. When it comes to witnesses, we give the power of 2 witnesses like 100 witnesses. And therefore, let's say we have 100 witnesses say Reuven borrowed money. And from Shimon, 2 witnesses say Reuven did not borrow the money. It's 2 against 100. It's like 100 against 100. So by the fact that the Torah said Eidim and gives 2 the power of 100, so therefore it's similarly the 100 are like 2. That means to say the 100 are like 2 is that they consider one group. And the only way we could kill any member of the group is only if every member of the group is found to be a framer. If one member of the group is not found to be a framer, we don't kill any member of the group. It's all one from Eidim. From the word, but Eidim, but here the word Eidim is extra. Because the pasuk said already Shnayim or Shlosha. But in fact it says Eidim, the extra Eidim is teaching us that they're considered, it's all as many witnesses that come, they're all considered, they're all equal to this, they're all the same. Or 2 has the power of 100. If there was a verdict about somebody, and then 2 witnesses come and say say that you guys are with us, so we believe, the Torah believes the second pair of witnesses.
No, but they say there's like 100, but then 2 witnesses come and they say 80 of them were with us.
I mean, 100 witnesses come and say Reuven borrowed $100 from Shimon. And then 2 witnesses come and say 80 of you guys were at a party on that day in a different town. So they will invalidate them as witnesses, but we will not punish anybody from the group, because you have to go ahead and make the whole group. Right, but the original verdict will not stand. We'll throw out the original verdict because the second pair of witnesses say that the first 80 of the guys were with them. So therefore we can't trust. Therefore the verdict is not going to stand. Now, if they will come as separate groups, Ariel, if you find one group to be framers, but if there's another group that was not found to be framers, well, it's the other group.
So if people come, why are we not considering the second group? As
The first group?
No, as the second group.
If 80, what's the case?
Because they came
80 witnesses come and say what happened. They come together as one group. Right, one group. No. Mr. Safsi, the way the Rabbeinu Hanana looks. The Rabbeinu Hanano says, the word Eidim teaches us that there's no difference between 2 and 100. The word Eidim, you have the word Shnayim, 2. Api Shnayim, the pasuk could have said, Api Shnayim o Shlosha Eidim. But the pasuk says, Api Shnayim Eidim o Shlosha Eidim. There's an extra Eidim. There's no extra, Torah doesn't write an extra letter, for sure not an extra word. So what's the extra word? The extra word tells us Shnayim Eidim. Shnayim, 2, equals Eidim, has the power of 100. So the same way it has a power of 100, too, has a power, is equal to 100 witnesses. When they come to court, it's like 100 witnesses come to court. When 2 witnesses come to court to testify about something, it's like there's 100 people here. 2 witnesses have a power of 100. The same way 2 witnesses have it's like 100 people. So if 2 people come and say about the first group that you guys are with us, even if the first group is 100 people, But the fact that we've established that 2 witnesses is like a power of 100, so the second pair is like 100 pairs, like 100 witnesses come. Is that clear? That's what Ben Achano says, Judge. Yeah, I mean, the commission, right? The mission was not. The mission was talking about testimony. Right. That's a good question. Right. The Vid is asking a great question. He's asking, we learned in the Gemara last week, we don't punish somebody based on a kal v'chomer. If you have a kal v'chomer, good morning, Jake. If you have a kal v'chomer to teach us punishment, like the Gemara says, the Torah talks about a half sister. Person can't sleep with his half sister, and the Torah Gemara says, how do you know you can't sleep with your full sister? The Gemara says we need a special pasuk. So the Gemara says, what are the special pasuk? If you can't sleep with your half sister, certainly you can't sleep with your whole sister. So the Gemara says we can't learn our punishment or even a warning from a kal v'chomer. So Dr. Navid is asking, what's the Mishnah's saying? Al pi Shnai, the pasuk says if you have 2 or 3 witnesses, we establish something is established. What do you need? The Gemara says if you tell me 2, you're able to listen to 2 witnesses, certainly able to listen to 3 witnesses. Something if 2 does the deal, 3 does the deal. So that the Navid is saying maybe we can't learn out. Maybe 3. It's the fact that 2 does the deal, but to have a kal v'chomer to learn out a punishment, you would not learn out from a kal v'chomer. So how could we learn out? How can we say 3 would work from the fact that 2 works? That's the kal v'chomer, and we're going to use that to punish somebody, right?
Second order that represents a hundred. And you could derive that.
Yeah, but I think that's what Dr. Navid is asking. Jake, you hear what he's asking? He's asking if we don't punish somebody based on a kal v'chomer. So if you have 3 witnesses come to court, but see, hear what Jake is saying? See what he's saying? He's saying that the kal v'chomer is, but the witnesses that the witnesses have to be accepted. They can come to be witnesses. The punishment is done later on by the court. The court goes ahead and he makes a judgment later, guilty or innocent. But we're only learning that you could that trust that witnesses. That's not a kal v'chomer punishment. That's the kal v'chomer that it could be a testimony that come as witnesses. Okay, beautiful answer to the question, Jay. Have a great day, everybody. I think the minyan will be upstairs. Thank you for joining in. Yes.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Rabbi, today we say Tachanun, right?
Yeah, we're back to Tachnun today, correct.
Okay.
You got it. Have a great day, Yosef.
Thanks.